morning, everyone. Hopefully, it will be a smooth one for all of us. So, I'm here to present the innovative approach to DLC systems that we did on Arma 3. I was a responsible designer for that and still am. And why is it innovative? And what did it try to achieve? And if it succeeded, that's basically what I'm going to cover today. So hopefully this thing works. Right, let me first briefly introduce the concept of downloadable content. It's something more that player gets after the game. He basically wants to expand the experience, the positive experience he gets from the game, so the developers are eager to fulfill that need for exchange of a currency, of course. Usually the downloadable content is a bit easier to develop because of existing tools and assets from production of the original game. And there has been some controversy lately, or not lately, because it's become quite a used concept that some of the developers pack the downloadable or extra content already to a shipped game. You can find it on the medium, or it's already in a game data on the day one. And for some titles, they even announce the DLC before even the game starts selling, which is a questionable thing to do. Again, the DLC itself kind of evolved from its introduction. We were used to have expansions for games like data disks back then, and then several companies, including the biggest one like EA or BioWare, started doing this downloadable thing. If you remember Dragon Age 1 in 2007, it was cleverly integrated into the dialogue system so that you would download the next part of the adventure almost seamlessly if you paid for it. Yeah, so it kind of developed, and now we are looking into again a bit more scary state where the downloadable content could basically replace the original intention or constitute a big part of the game for some of the titles. Again, it makes sense somewhere for like simulators that sell each plane or each vehicle simulation separately, because it takes a lot of time to produce. But for some titles, it's a pure money-making machine. And again, there's a new thing in town. This you might have heard of it. This early access that some of the developers around here are familiar with is kind of the opposite approach to selling more stuff or selling things faster. With DLC, you are delivering content after the game for the finished product. With early access, you are basically delivering a not finished product and asking your players to buy into a future experience. But I'm not going to cover the early access thing, so perhaps someday later. Arma 3, just a quick introduction, because I think it's important to explain what it is. Arma 3 is a military sandbox game that focuses on the infantry experience. We have a large open world that is used for basically military operations, and there are some core concepts in development and production of Arma that is written in the texture of Bohemia Interactive and all titles that we do. Basically, we focus on the community because we provide a lot of tools and scripting stuff for them to develop their own content that is basically on a very good quality level, and creatively it can surpass everything we are able to do. This started with the Operation Flashpoint in 2001 and has been part of Arma series ever since. For Arma 2, we already had a DLC concept. We basically delivered all data to everyone for free, and if players used those data without owning them, they would see lesser quality of textures, which means if you drove the tank on the right, it would look on your screen a bit worse than the high-res tank for owners. It was quite liked, this approach, but for some reasons we had to come with a new system. Basically, we would definitely love to provide more free content, but it's not a sustainable approach if you have to pay for your employees and for other production costs. And for the DRM implementation, because Arma 3 went Steam only or Steam exclusive, we had to look into the DRM implementation that wasn't usable from the Arma 2 Lite approach, because back then we used CD keys and stuff like that, and now everything is handled by Steam ownership checks, which is way easier for us and more comfortable for the players if they are into DRM things. And the last thing, and most severe for us, was to having light textures would mean we would need to branch all the data, and that comes with a lot of work because testing everything is just not doable, not if you want to deliver a constant quality. So we looked into a new solution. Just to briefly run you through how our competitors are doing it. There's of course the big league, the guys in EA and Activision with the titles that are at the top of military games are of course heavily into DLCs, but our approach is different from them because they lock their content. So if you don't own the DLC for Battlefield or Call of Duty, you basically can't use the content from it, which is fair, it's understandable, but it produces this thing called multiplayer player-based split, which means you might have a lot of players online, but they can't play with each other because one of them has a DLC, the other one don't own it. So they can see themselves being online, connect to server, but can't start a mission, stuff like that. There are other approaches for more indie titles, or not in the case of Counter-Strike, of course, where they've used the ownership checks quite liberally. So for Payday 2, DLC owners can host their games for their friends without their friends needing to own the content. And in Counter-Strike, you can invite your Steam friends into a game you are currently locked, so they can join you again without owning the DLC. So after analyzing what others are doing, we had to run, of course, back to our drawing boards and do something of our own. And we decided to go with content having two basically key aspects. One of them is features are free. This is relevant because it provides us an opportunity to basically not to do the multiplayer split. If you have one game with all the features, because content is quite modular in Arma, you don't have to solve players not being able to connect to a same game. And again, if you provide the features to community creators, they can build on them and delivering something we don't have time or imagination to do. So yes, features are free. That's nice. And content is paid. That's reasonable. We logged some of the content. Basically, all single-player missions, or some of them are locked. So if you want to experience what we have prepared and tested in our quality level, please pay us, or that's what we are asking the player. And for assets, because as I said, the game is sandbox military platform thing. They want to try the tank for themselves. Or a new gun. We introduced a concept of visual notifications. Basically, we allow the players to use the content or assets to a degree, but we introduce some notifications on the screen that scale with time to purposefully break the immersion of a player into the game world or into the game itself. So how does it look? There's a quite decent one. We call it watermark. Every time you use a known asset, DLC logo or DLC icon appears at the right of your screen, somewhere down, to remind you that you might perhaps buy this cool vehicle or a gun. Again, if you continue using it for 10 minutes or 15 minutes, the watermark expands, showing you other assets that belong to the DLC. And if you still continue to use it, there pops up a reminder that you really could think about buying the DLC. It disappears after a few seconds and reappears every several minutes. But again, it's the immersion break that serves our purpose of notifying you that purchasing is okay, and we know what to do with the money. The last visual notification is these tiles. They animate to a screen. Again, they basically work like a different version of a pop-up with the DLC logo. And after a few seconds, they animate out of the screen. So these are the visual notifications. And the aspect of immersion breaking is why I did this talk. For me, is something that few of the games have tapped. They basically market the additional content using the in-game notifications, but not the one you are currently using. We found that these notifications are okay, but they don't apply, or they don't work on all type of players. Some of them are more resistant. So we introduced one more thing, and that's restricted access to some of the vehicles. Basically, as you would expect, military vehicles do have several positions in them. You can be a gunner in a tank, or a driver, or a commander, or a pilot or co-pilot in a helicopter. So we implemented restricted access to those key gameplay positions. You can enter every vehicle as a passenger, which is usually the most passive role in a vehicle that's only there for deployment, not to the battlefield or transport. But if you want to access the gameplay that comes with the vehicle, it's restricted. So to sum it up briefly, with this access, we need to be quite careful on how to introduce that to a sandbox-style game that relies on everything being open and moddable, and tries to keep true to the principle for our players. So we intentionally left in script commands that more advanced players can use in developing their own content if they really feel a need to. So they can basically move the player into the restricted position. Of course, the visual notifications would still apply even if you somehow got into the vehicle. And we are keeping the in-editor, because there's a sandbox editor in the game. We allow you to place yourself into the vehicle as well to try driving or shooting in your mission. But if you are in a game, in some other missions, you just can't enter it using non-scripted solution. Yes. How to validate if we are on the right track? That's for me the simple most interesting thing we did. We did a test DLC small addition into the game that was supposed to validate or tell us if we are doing something wrong. We choose a non-military thing, basically go-karts that we thought would be fun to drive around while you are not shooting someone. And with this test DLC, we also launched our explanations of the new DLC system. So the players who would get shocked by seeing immersion breaking notifications could get some explanation. What we have found out, or how did we find our information? We again, shortly after releasing the DLC, we monitored the initial reactions on social networks. That's our best access to what players want and think. And interestingly, the single most used reaction was that the players didn't want go-karts in their military simulator. So it didn't tell us much about the DLC approach. Then we launched a more structured and detailed DLC survey, which aimed to separate this cards aspect from the DLC strategy. We had quite a few responses. I'm not sure if you are familiar, but filling in more than 15 minutes length of survey is a barrier for most of the people. But luckily, more than 700 did, and we received quality feedback on the DLC system. The results are that when players were able to compare to other existing titles, of course the optimal approach for players is to receive free content, but that's sadly not how the business works. They told us that 2/3 of them would prefer Arma free solution to titles of their choosing. And then again mentioned the Payday 2 and Counter-Strike and other titles that uses similar approaches. For us, it's vocal minority still. So basically, it goes with negative emotions that if you don't like something, you're gonna shout on a Twitter or Reddit or stuff. If you like something, you are silent. Mostly, so we expect the results are even a bit higher, but on the other hand, we don't really know. And then send the money, the DLC, the test DLC made to charity, because that was again a thing that we considered fair in a test approach. So now we are left with the feedback from the players, and we need to iterate on that to make it even better. We found out that this try before you buy approach, where players can use the assets, was perceived by someone, but some of our players felt confused, and truth be told, we didn't really offer a simple way how they could try every asset. So we are looking into how to improve this. Again, mostly in the editor, players are now unaware of which asset belongs to which DLC. So this again should be, or I will hopefully look onto implementing that into game, so they know and can make a conscious decision to use or not to use the asset if they are developing a mission. We got an interesting feedback regarding the pricing of DLC. So we again need to work on the features are free aspect, which is, or I told you the reason, mostly they are because we are trying to keep the sandbox tight and together. But through this, they wouldn't get developed without those DLC that are paying for it. So features are free for everyone is a cool thing, but they still belong to the DLC. Is again aspect that we need to communicate better, and as well as I told you, the players in the DLC server told us that they would prefer free DLCs, which is understandable, but we can't really do that every time. So to sum this up, and I hope that there's going to be time for questions. We needed to look into how to solve DLC for Arma 3 because Arma 2 system wasn't usable. We didn't go with easy and basically a standard thing how the industry solves it to provide a barrier. If you don't know it, you can use it. We've developed a quite liberal system, and we are persuading the players to make a purchase by breaking their immersion, which is questionable because immersion is, for some of them, one of the reasons they purchased the original game in the first place. And for some of them, it's one of the most important things they look in a gameplay. They want to immerse in the military setting or the military situation on a map. And interestingly, the survey told us that so far players seem to accept it, but they might change their mind with other DLCs or how the system will evolve, of course.